Drifter, written by Jim Mintz.
Sophie stood and stepped deeper into the river. She was transfixed by the preacher, unwilling to give any attention to any conflicting thoughts. The entity was angered by her independence. It forced her away from her path, but she struggled back, adjusting her body to face the preacher named John. She believed it was doubt playing a hand over her willpower. The entity had fears of its own. It feared the preacher had the ability to cast the alien out, damning it to an existence outside of a living creature to manipulate. The entity had never come across such a barrier before. It was frightened. "Come to me, child," the Baptist encouraged as Sophie stepped closer and closer, descending deeper and deeper. "What is baptism?" the entity thought. It asked the girl, but she was unwilling to engage, her fixation complete. "What is baptism?" the entity forced on her. She turned her focus away and indulged the entity. "It is the forgiveness of sins, the purification of the soul, the preparation for heaven," she said. All nonsense, the entity thought. Sophie had heard it think this. "No, it is true. The Baptist tells us so. I am a believer," she was saying, attempting to convince the entity, whom she believed was her inner voice. The entity tried again to steer her away from the preacher. It did not want to be confronted by the dark magic, if there was any. This force field around the preacher was strong. The entity would need to prepare itself if it was to face this threat. A stronger host, perhaps? "Begone from her," came a voice. The entity was pushed out of Sophie, flushed out like a waterfall. It landed in a heap on the surface of the water, floating where no one could see. Stuck to the liquid, unable to make its way upwards, outwards and beyond. This was momentary, as it gathered its form and pulled its matter away from the liquid, catching a ride on the wind, away from the river, and floating upwards above the crowd that had gathered. Sophie was stopped in her tracks. Another had entered the water and was walking towards the Baptist. John had bowed in honor of this new man who was descending with every step. "I am here to be cleansed. Please," he said to the Baptist. The entity looked back towards the banks where the boy was, but he was gone. He had ridden off with the horse. The entity looked down. The new man looked up. Its eyes fixed on the alien, it looked as if it could see right where it was. "You cannot be here," he said. But he didn't say it. He thought it. The entity heard the man's thoughts. "You cannot interfere. You may read about this later, but you cannot interfere," he said. Galloping in the distance, towards the far end of the banks of the river, the boy appeared out of the marsh. The entity could ride the wind and reattach itself. The preacher and this new man made it feel unsafe. The entity needed to be with the boy. There were too many questions. The boy would need to be the one to find the answers.